Welcome to Healthy Living. I'm Lori Johnson. Thanks for joining us. Today, we're talking about a topic that involves all of us, America's food supply. My guest is researcher Merrill Rounds, author of the book, The Lies, the Truth, and the Food We Eat. Merrill, great to see you. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me, Lori. I'm really excited to be here.
Well, obviously, this is a subject that you are extremely passionate about, and you wanted to get the message out to people, to Christians in particular, because you are
Mhm.
a Christian. And when I call you a researcher, you actually don't work for a scientific research company, but you've spent many years, decades, in fact, researching the food that so many of us are eating. So this all began for you, this big turnaround, your interest in food back in 2003 when you looked at the ingredients on a salad dressing bottle. Talk about that.
Well, my daughter had just returned from New York City. It was my youngest daughter. I have three daughters. And she said, we were eating salad at the table, and I said, "Oh, isn't this wonderful food?" And she said, "Look at the back of the bottle, Mom, and see what's in there." And there was nothing I could pronounce except for soy. And I was like, "Oh no." So I went to the computer and looked and to see what was in there. And it was like MSG. It had all these chemicals in it that I couldn't pronounce. And so I started researching what those chemicals were. And they were really horrible for your body, especially your internal organs. I had seen the results from my parents and my siblings of what they ate, and I didn't want to end up like that. So they both had Alzheimer's and dementia. It was definitely from the food supply.
Well, we know that the United States is one of the least healthy countries in the entire world, and
Yeah.
experts do blame that on the food we eat. How bad are the foods for us? Like most foods that you'd find in a grocery store, like how devastating are they?
Well, you don't want to eat processed food because it is full of additives. If you turn it over and look on the ingredient label and you can't read what's on the ingredient label and understand what that food is, don't eat that. We all have a computer in our hands. The phone is a wonderful instrument for finding out the truth about what we eat. I was just to the point where I had to put out a book. I was driving my husband absolutely crazy because everyone I talked to, I said, "Did you know that this is in this? And did you know that this does this?" I probably read at least 50 books. For instance, Dr. Gundry's lectins. People don't even know what a lectin is. A lectin is a process the plant uses to keep people from eating it green. And the problem with this is they pick it green in Chile and ship it to the United States and put it in ethylene gas. Ethylene gas really isn't bad for you, but it turns the fruit colors that we expect to see, like plums, tomatoes, bananas. So we go to the grocery store and we expect to see the color of purple on plums. But the problem is the lectins are still present in the plums. And if we eat those, it can really mess up our intestines.
I'm glad you plugged Dr. Gundry because just last week I interviewed him and he talked about lectins. But here's the big difference between you and Dr. Gundry and so many of the health experts that I interview is a lot of times their books are extremely scientific, difficult to read, very long. This book right here is your book and it's very short and
Mhm.
which everybody loves and very easy to understand and to the point. And I think this is the best book for people just starting out who just want the cliff notes, so to speak, the
Mhm.
main points of what they should eat, what they shouldn't eat. So, talk about if people were just eating the standard American diet, which most folks are, what would be the first thing that you would tell them to change? Because it's a little overwhelming to go from eating terrible to great.
It took me a long time to modify my food, but the first thing you want to do is change your bread. They put so much horrible stuff in our bread. It's unbelievable. For one thing, the wheat has all been modified with glucosamate. And glucosamate is actually Roundup. And they've done this to all of our base ingredients, all of them, soy, alfalfa. So it ends up in the meat, it ends up in the milk, it ends up in our bread, especially the bread, because if they use the regular flour, that flour has been genetically modified by Roundup 3 times before it ever gets into the bread. They also have azobicarbonate in the bread, which actually causes asthma in children, and they know this, and they continue to put it in the bread. Our rates went up 500% right after they added that within the year after they added the azobicarbonate in our bread. If you go overseas to Asia, they'll put you in jail for 14 years and give you a $250,000 fine for putting azobicarbonate in your bread. So you look for azo bicarbon. That's the chemical you do not want in your bread, especially if you have children.
Well, what kind of bread do you recommend then?
I have a recipe in my little book. I have been making this for probably 15 years. I got the basic recipe out of Choices. It's called Choices. It's an Amish book from Sugar Creek, Ohio. And I read about how to do it. I also worked at a bakery for 5 years, a Whole Foods bakery. And it told me don't use bromine in your bread. My boss wouldn't even buy flour with bromine in it. So I learned to soak grains and to make this, and I started making this bread myself. It makes 6 loaves at a time, which may be overwhelming. I am in the process of having this book updated so that there will be a recipe for 1 loaf, 3 loaves, or 6 loaves in the updated version.
But the thing I feel kind of like if you're going to go ahead and make homemade bread, go ahead and make 6 loaves and then freeze 5 of them, right? You can
Yes,
freeze.
and this stuff freezes wonderful. When you pull it out and it thaws, it's just like it was baked. It is a soft Ohio bread because Ohioans like their bread soft. They don't like hard bread.
You're from the Cincinnati area. I grew up in the Columbus area, but yeah, so I know what you mean about the Ohio bread and the large Amish community there and the fantastic food. We're going to take a break and be right back with Merrill Rounds. The book is called "The Lies, the Truth, and the Food We Eat." Stay with us. Welcome back to Healthy Living. We're talking about how to change our diet to get rid of a lot of the processed foods, the chemicals, the additives, the pesticides. And we're talking with Merrill Rounds, who wrote the book, "The Lies, the Truth, and the Food We Eat." And you mentioned before the break your homemade bread recipe. And I wanted to point out you have a lot of other recipes in the book, which are fantastic. You've got a recipe for mac and cheese, for meatloaf, chicken salad, tuna salad, egg salad, even condiments like mayonnaise, and also tomato sauce. And these are really, not that complicated. Talk to our viewers about, you know, some of the other problematic foods that so many of us eat, especially oils. A lot of people think that if it says vegetable oil, well, vegetables are good, or canola oil. We're told that even Whole Foods Market says, oil is good. Talk about the oils we should be eating and avoiding.
Okay. Vegetable oil and canola oil are 98% genetically modified. They are heated up to an extremely high heat and processed and pressed. And this is really bad for your body. The only oils I use are coconut and regular olive oil and extra virgin olive oil. Those are my 3. Sometimes I'll use some sesame oil if I'm making stir fry. Other than that, I don't use any of those other oils. I specifically will never use canola oil. It's 98% genetically modified. That means they've stuck Roundup in the seed and genetically modified this grain. And then they press it out and expect it to not hurt us. Yeah, it hurts us. All those oils hurt us. That's why I just go with coconut oil and regular olive oil.
And then talk about this, the sugar. A lot of people say sugar is, enemy number one. But there are lots of different types of sugar. There's
Mhm.
regular cane sugar, and then there are all the variations of sugar, like high fructose corn syrup, and all those things that end in OSE. And then you have the artificial sweeteners, things that are in diet drinks and diet foods. Can you talk about what we should know about sweeteners?
Okay, sweeteners, go to stevia. Stevia can be used in anything cold. If you're making up a salad dressing, you can put a pack of stevia in there and it'll be sweet and it'll taste great. Stevia is a plant. I've actually grown stevia here at the house, and it's wonderful for teas. It's wonderful for lots of things. I have problems with it baking, it leaves an aftertaste. But instead of using that, you can use agave nectar. You can use organic, or I stress, organic cane sugar. On the back of the package, it lists sugar and how much it has. It is beet sugar and it has been genetically modified. They have actually added Roundup into the seed, and when it grows up, then they hit the field with Roundup so that all the weeds die and the plant stands up. And that's all well and good, except that they didn't do much research on what it actually would do to our bodies. The research out there was done on rats, and when they did it right in the beginning, and then they swept it under the rug. They didn't want anyone to know what it would do to our bodies. For males, it gives them heart attacks. They didn't even reach adulthood for the rats. And the reason they use rats is because they have the same internal organs we do. And the females could not give live birth, and they had trouble getting pregnant. Does that sound familiar to anybody? Why do we have
Absolutely.
all of our young girls going through IVS? Because they can't get pregnant. So
Mhm.
that's where I am on the sweeteners. And I would never use aspartame. I would never use I would never use the fake sweeteners because they mess up your brain. I had a friend of mine who actually was drinking Diet Coke all the time, and he was very overweight, and his brain got cloudy. And this is a very intelligent, well-educated man. And his wife told him, and I told him, and he finally saw it on TV, that NutraSweet actually affects your brain and makes you go into Alzheimer's. So he quit drinking it, and he lost 80 pounds, and his brain cleared right up. But yeah, NutraSweet and all the artificial sweeteners, they're super bad for your brain. Um, they turn into chlorine in your brain and affect your telomeres that's in your brain.
It's great that we can, reference your book and see what we should be eating, what we shouldn't be eating. But basically, you say most of the items that are processed, that are made by some of these big companies, stay away from. Most of the things in the middle of the grocery store, the
Hmm.
cereal aisle, the already made foods. But there are some that are okay, like some canned vegetables or canned fish, maybe canned beans, things like that, if you rinse them off. So you have a lot of good instructions here. We're going to take another break and be right back with Merrill Rounds. The book is called The Lies, the Truth, and the Food We Eat. Stay with us. Welcome back to Healthy Living. We are speaking with researcher Merrill Rounds, author of the book, The Lies, the Truth, and the Food We Eat. So, Merrill, we have been hearing a lot lately about the new Health and Human Services Secretary, RFK Jr., who is also, like you, very concerned about our food supply. And he says he's going to try to do things about it, clean up the food supply. But you point out in your book that these giant food companies have all kinds of money and,
Hmm.
can bribe and pay off people at the FDA and Congress. I mean, how realistic do you think it is that RFK is going to be able to actually change the food that is available in the grocery store?
Well, in 1984, they changed our whole food supply over because a guy from Monsanto started working for the FDA. And he decided that we need Roundup in all of our base crops. And he actually took the seed sorters for the farmers out of business, put them in jail, took away their machines, so that they can't plant the seed that they actually harvested from the year before. So they all were mandated to have to buy Roundup seed for their crops. And you can look at that at food.inc. It's a video, a documentary. And it tells all what happened in 1984. What Mr. Kennedy would have to do is reverse that. He'd have to go back and say, we're no longer doing that. We're going to take all the organic seed and put it up for sale and forget this Roundup seed and destroy it. I mean, even people in Africa, they were going through a huge famine, and they decided to send them some of this wonderful Roundup seed. They used it 1 year and burned it because it made their people sick, because those people are eating pure food. They're not eating things out of the grocery store. They're eating pure food. And when you have a pure system and you put poison into it, it will make you very sick. And it made them sick. Even though they were going through a famine, they were smart enough that they knew they did not want this kind of wheat. And they destroyed the crop. I think he could change it, but it's going to take a lot of work. And it's going to take a lot of work through the FDA or through him actually saying, we're no longer going to plant Roundup seed. And that's basically what we're all eating. Is if you go conventional to any grocery store or go to any restaurant, if it's not Chipotle, you're eating Roundup with every bite. Mm-hmm. And yes, they say it's only trace amounts, but if you've got Roundup in the bread, Roundup in the meat, Roundup in EDTA in the mayonnaise, that was my big opening. When I found out they were using embalming fluid preservative in mayonnaise, it made me ill. So that's why I started making my own mayonnaise.
Literally and figuratively.
Yes.
All right, we're going to take another break, and we're going to be right back with Merrill Rounds. Once again, the book is called The Lies, the Truth, and the Food We Eat. Stay tuned. Welcome back. We're talking to Merrill Rounds, author of The Lies, the Truth, and the Food We Eat, where she lays out how we should be eating and also living, because you talk a little bit too about, the types of cleansers, laundry detergent, try to get the plastics out of that. And you even have some recipes for that. But I wanted to get back to this idea of, you were talking about the glyphosate, the Roundup, and these things are not in organic foods. So you're pretty safe to go ahead and buy organic foods, but so many people cannot afford buying all organic. What do you say to them?
I have in the book a thing called the Clean 15 and the Dirty Dozen. The Clean 15, there's 15 products that you can buy that are not organic. All you have to do is wash them, because basically they haven't been grown with glyphosate. They have just been grown conventionally, but they have pesticides on them. So you want to peel it off or wash it off. And you can do that with a fourth of a cup of vinegar and water. You can wash your berries. You can wash the pesticides off of them. For me, it's worth the extra $1 to buy the organic berries, especially berries. They have such thin skins, and you don't want to eat glyphosate in those. I didn't want to just complain about the food supply. I wanted to teach people how to get around it, how to not eat it. And that's why I wrote the book, because I wanted to have a solution for how we can not eat what they want us to eat. If they make us sick, then Big Pharma comes in and gives us all these chemicals to fix that. And that isn't any solution. Who wants to live on chemicals? Exactly, and that's basically what they're doing to us. So there's two reasons that they did this to the food.
Well, we're almost out of time, unfortunately. Tell people where they can get the book and find out more about you.
You can get the book on Amazon, or you can come to the farmers market in Delhi Township or in Sailor Park and buy it from me, because I sell teas at the farmers market. I sell herbal teas at the farmers market, mainly because I want a solution to what they're eating on the other side. If they're eating this stuff, they're going to need something else to counteract that. And I've got like 27 different teas that I sell now, just to counteract what is in our food supply.
That's wonderful. And we know those teas are ancient remedies to be sure. And once again, you do sort of base all of your thoughts and your opinions about our food supply on what the Bible tells us and the way
Mhm.
God originally intended it. So I wanted to make sure to give you that plug too. So many of our viewers can relate. And I also love the idea of how you talk in the book about you don't need to necessarily spend a lot. A lot of people buy bad foods because it's convenient, but it
Mm.
doesn't have to be too time consuming. Like you say, you can do some baking and freeze a bunch of it. So wanted to put that little plug in there too. Well, Merrill, thank you so much for being with us again. And folks, once again, the book is called The Lies, the Truth, and the Food We Eat. So great to see you, Merrill. We appreciate you being with us.
Thank you so much for having me, Lori. This has been a blast. I just love talking about people getting off of the bad food and getting onto some good food.
Amen.
Again,
All
it's
right. All
really
right.
a pleasure. Thank you.
Likewise. All right. And thanks to you viewers for tuning in to this edition of Healthy Living. I'm Lori Johnson, and we'll see you again next week.